So let's dive in. Venice AI founder Jesse Proudman has been in Washington state for all of his adult life. He's 41 now. He's been here 28 years. And Venice AI is his third startup. He started his first company when he was 13 years old. Pretty remarkable, very, very bright guy. And I had a chance to interview him today. Um, he loves Washington and he's very involved in giving back in his community. Still got a couple of kids that are in schools here and he doesn't want to leave. But the income tax, he says, for him is, the straw that broke the camel's back. So he is partnering with Let's Go Washington on their initiative, which was launched 2 days ago here in Washington. So I asked him today, why get involved in this and why put yourself out there and go public? Why not just, relocate and stay out of the fight?
I really like it here, and I don't really want to move. Uh, and I sort of had the realization that there were two paths. Either I just quietly packed up and left like everybody else is doing, or I became vocal. And nobody else, there are a number of other folks, but not a large population is willing to stick their neck out or have the conversation. And felt like somebody needed to start. So here I am. Yeah, I grew up in Tacoma. I've been a lifelong Washingtonian. I've started multiple businesses here. I started my first business because the startup climate in Seattle in the dot-com era was so vibrant and exciting, and that got me fired up. You get entrepreneurs excited about entrepreneurship when there are entrepreneurs around. And so over the last 28 years, I've done my best to be part of the Seattle ecosystem and to kind of pay it back to other entrepreneurs. And then in the midst of, it really seems to start around in the midst of COVID, this general shift began to occur where entrepreneurs and the contributions that they make became villainized. And the tech community in Seattle that has been, whether it's sort of high tech, aerospace, or just technology companies in general, sort of the backbone of much of the economic growth of the state, they became the target. And you saw it with the jumpstart taxes, you saw it with the capital gains taxes, and then this kind of final millionaires tax. Really, I mean, it is the straw that broke the camel's back. We've already got an incredibly complex and multi-layered tax climate. We're, I think, 45th or 46th worst tax climate in the country before the income tax was applied. The gross receipts B&O tax on businesses, where businesses are taxed on their top line revenue, not on their profitability, is that always blew my mind as a business owner in the state. And so to then claim that there's not enough money and that the budget can't be balanced without then targeting a very specific cohort of individuals, it's enraging.
So in recent weeks, he has been very public with his criticisms of the anti-business climate in Washington state, the crushing tax burden, and now the coming pending income tax. He was on Fox News recently. So he's getting a lot of people that are contacting him and a lot of other business owners and wealthy individuals in Washington state. He told me he's been surprised at how many of them really didn't understand that this millionaires tax is going to be crafted in such a way that future legislators could lower the threshold. It could be, down to somebody who makes $500,000, then 250, then 100, then eventually an income tax on all Washington income earners. So he said it's been interesting to him, and he's glad to be part of the initiative campaign because this is going to put it out there publicly where a lot more people were finding out details of this that they didn't even know. So I asked him in the business circles that he runs in, what are others saying about Washington's business climate and the income tax?
Everybody's leaving. And that's been the most surprising thing to me as I began speaking out, was the flood of private communication that I'm receiving from folks who have either left or are actively considered departing. I was at an event a number of weeks back, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I tweeted about it, where it was sort of eight couples together. The event ended up being the announcement that the couple hosting had sold their house and they're on their way out. And then everybody else who was there was sort of having the same realization. And people are in various states of process, whether folks have either found places to move or just beginning to think about it. But the reality is, this targeted population is incredibly mobile and doesn't want to be living in a place where they feel villainized and targeted. And so when those two things combine, and when the mayor brazenly laughs and waves them off, and the governor claims nobody's going to move, and Jamie Pedersen says there's no evidence of that happening, the reality is that just pushes everybody farther and farther to the breaking point.
And did you hear what former Governor Chris Gregoire said last week? Now, she served as our state's governor from 2005 to 2013. She had two consecutive terms. She's a Democrat, in case you weren't around here at that time. And last week, she was invited to speak alongside former Attorney General Rob McKenna at the Association of Washington Businesses Spring Summit. And it was very interesting when she was asked about Washington's kind of ballooning budget and the anti-business climate that has been created by the majority party.
I left office with a budget of $33 billion, and the budget today is $80 billion. I think that's a little bit too much of a growth. And yet, how we find ourselves at the end of every legislative session now is in the hole and projected to be in the hole. I would suggest to you, we don't really have an income problem, we have a spending problem. And we're answering it by stacking one more tax, one more rule, one more regulation. And the one thing that the business community doesn't need is that lack of predictability. That's how businesses grow. That's how they thrive. That's not healthy for our business community at all. As I look, unfortunately, last year at the composition of the Economic Development Committee and the House and the Senate, the one in the House was hard to find. The one in the Senate didn't exist. I asked, when did that happen? Where did the Economic Development Committee go in our state? And they heard, and they created one. Why do I think those are so important? To educate regarding the consequences of the taxes. For example, sales tax on services, anti-big business. Who was hurt? Small business. Didn't understand it, didn't know it, didn't have anybody in the caucus who could explain it, nor was there a committee in which they could really begin to see the consequences of that action.
So Let's Go Washington this week did launch their initiative drive aimed at repealing the income tax. They're going to be out. They've got the next 49 days, only till July the 2nd to gather. They hope more than 400,000 valid voter signatures to turn in. That they really only need a little bit over 300,000, but a lot of times there's duplicates or people sign when they're not a registered voter. So they have to account for some of those, throwouts from the Secretary of State's office. So off and running on this. They're confident they can get this thing done in the next 49 days. We'll keep you posted.